What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss, such as a new number one in NCAA men's volleyball. Who is this new number one, and what did this team have to do in order to surpass Long Beach State? Also, how about Lindenwood knocking off Loyola Chicago? Did they do it once or twice? Also, how about Vanguard men's volleyball? I tried to tell y'all NAIA men's volleyball was something to watch for, as the Lions roared past the Masters College, reverse sweeping them. How was the vibe in the gym, and what was it like covering that? Also, how about the Columbus Fury? They are on a tear in the Pro Volleyball Federation, as well as the San Diego Mojo, who got their first ever victory. And Corona Del Mar boys volleyball, winning the Tesoro Tournament. What happened this past Monday in the semifinals and final? Hand me a volleyball, set up the net, because I'm about to serve up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point, here on IESR Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday morning, Monday, wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way to episode 235 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point will not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio, providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on several different social media platforms, such as X, formerly known as Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at IE Sports Radio. We also have a Facebook page. All you have to do is like us, and then that's how you're able to follow us for all of your latest sports news and whatnot. And we also have a website, iesportsradio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our pages dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our community forum, and our merchandise shop. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit planetjerky.net and place your order. In addition, prices are slashed for the time being, and if you buy $50 worth of an order, you'll get the order shipped for free. Once again, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. Our second sponsor is Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch. Maybe you wrote a letter to a relative or friend and you want to add their smile when they receive it. If that is the case, then Seal the Deal Wax Seals with Cecilia's handmade seal wax stamps is for you. Your invitations, letters, and gifts will have that extra special wow factor. Their motto is, you bring the deal and we'll bring the seal. You can follow them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, and on Instagram at set_point.iesr. And you can follow me, Teran Rodriguez, mainly on X, at Teran Rodriguez1. And without any further delay, let us begin. So we have some NCAA men's volleyball to discuss, as we had a lot of good matches over the weekend. We had some shockers, and we had some pretty good matches a pretty good match that I attended. So we have to start off with my match and series of the week. Number 10 USC at number 2 Grand Canyon. This was as good as advertised. USC took the first set 25-21. I was not surprised because USC is indeed a good team. The problem is just they can't really put it all together, which if they want to compete with the big boys, they got to actually put it together and make it work on their own and have everybody pulling the rope. But they did just that in that first set. Then the second set, Grand Canyon caught their second wind. They took that set 25-21. Third set, USC led for a while. I think they led like 17-15, and then GCU rattled off 3 in a row, and they never trailed after that. As Grand Canyon took that third set 25-23, that was the turning point of that match. If GCU doesn't take that set, then maybe USC's feeling a little bit more good to go to that fourth set. Then the fourth set, it was all GCU. As I mentioned, GCU winning that third set was what really stirred the drink to help them basically become rich with the win, as GCU just ran away with that set for the most part. They took the fourth set 25-15 as they were led by Cameron Thorne and Jackson Hickman, who had 14 kills apiece. Camden Gianni had 7 kills along with Rico Wardlow. The Lopes hit 311 and they outdug their opponent. They also outblocked their opponent. They had fewer service errors as USC was led by Dylan Klein, who had 15 kills. Riley Hain had 11 kills, and Wes Smith had 10 kills. Kyle Paulson also had 7 kills to also aid in the middle. Austin Stewart had 10 digs. And for GCU, Carter Rogers had 11 digs, which he added 6 kills to go along with that. So the takeaway for that matchup is this. USC missed a big opportunity to possibly push GCU to a fourth set. The second match, well, let's just say it was a little bit shorter than the previous one. So GCU took the first set 25-18. It was actually very tight in the first half of that set. And then GCU just started to kick it into overdrive. Then the second set, same of the second set. USC had their chances, but the Trojans just could not come up big in the late stages of that second set. GCU wound up winning the second set 25-21. Then the third set, USC had so many opportunities to push the third set to push the match to a fourth set. But unfortunately, GCU had other plans. They want to end the third set with a win on their own and a sweep, which is what they did, winning the third set 30-28. The Lopes were led by Camden Gianni and Jackson Hickman, who both had 12 kills. Carter Rogers had 10 kills. Rico Wardlow had 9 kills. GCU had 50 kills as a team compared to USC's 34, as the Lopes hit 381, holding USC to only a 234 hitting percentage. The Trojans were led by Dylan Klein, who had 12 kills. Their next kill leader was Jack Duker and Wes Smith, both having 7 kills. The thing I'll give USC credit for is that they blocked the ball really well, as they had 10 blocks to Grand Canyon 7. GCU, however, they were serving really tough, and that's when Grand Canyon is at their best. When they're serving the ball tough, they are really tough to stop. USC only had 1 ace. Even though GCU missed 17 serves, that's what you gotta do. You gotta serve tough in NCAA men's volleyball, and men's volleyball in general. So GCU, I'm just gonna say, if anyone doubts that they are not deserving of the number 1 spot of the AVCA coaches poll, well, I think GCU has passed the eye test quite nicely. They passed their first test with flying colors, albeit BYU lost one of their top players toward the end of that second match, and they passed this test with flying colors. And USC's a quality opponent. USC actually has some pretty darn good wins. It's not like USC of last year. Like, USC has some pretty good wins. But for the Trojans, this was not one of them. I kind of saw some red flags from USC when they played Concordia Irvine, especially when they had to go 5 on their home floor at Galen Center. So all in all for USC, they're going to have to really turn it around quickly just because they have a big matchup against UCLA this week. And that's a perfect segue to go into the next series. UCLA versus BYU. And remember when I kept on telling y'all that BYU is one of the tougher places to win at? Well, BYU, even though they lost to Grand Canyon, that just goes to show that GCU is the deserving team of being number 1. Well, BYU just did not have the answers. So, first set, it was a barn burner. The first two sets were barn burners as BYU took the opening set. UCLA had their chances to win that first set, but unfortunately BYU was able to slip away and take that first set 31-29. But the Bruins paid back the Cougars, winning the second set 25-23. And then UCLA won the third set 25-18. And it was at that point where I was thinking, well, doesn't look like UCLA is going to have a little bit of a hangover. But BYU was able to take the fourth set. It was a bit of a battle, even though the box score says that BYU only trailed once, as the Cougars took that fourth set 25-21. Then the fifth set, it was bananas. BYU trailed 8-4 after the side change, but then proceeded to go on an 11-4 run. They won the fifth set 15-12. UCLA missed 28 serves. They also, and here's the thing, UCLA almost hit 500. They hit 491. But once again, the service errors were a problem. UCLA also outblocked BYU, get this, 11.5-1. BYU only had one block, and that was from Luke Benson. UCLA also outdug BYU, but BYU was able to come up big. The big thing that they really excelled in was the serving. BYU had 11 service aces. Yes, they missed 27 serves. I'll get into that a little bit more, but the Cougars came out on top. This was a huge win for BYU. Just goes to show that Smith Fieldhouse is indeed a tough place to win at. Luke Benson led the way with 16 kills. Mix Romanis, 14 kills. Capono Brown, 12 kills. UCLA had 4 different players in double digits in kills, as Zach Rama led the way with 21 kills. Merrick McHenry had 14 kills. Cooper Robinson, 13 kills. Ido David, 11 kills. Ethan Champlin was the libero. He had 10 digs. So the big takeaway for UCLA is this. I don't know how you have those numbers, almost hitting 500, outblocking your opponent 11.5-1, only holding the opponent to one block, mind you, outdigging your opponent, and you still lose that match. I get it. BYU is a really good team, and they served the you-know-what out of the ball really tough. But it just goes to show that BYU is a contender. But the second match kind of proved otherwise, as UCLA got the revenge on BYU on the road, winning in 5 sets, paying them back. This time it was BYU up 2-1. UCLA had to make a switch. They switched Ethan Champlin from libero to outside hitter, and that was how BYU kind of came back, and UCLA came back and wound up winning the match. And I'll just say, UCLA needed this win. If they go into that USC match on a 2-match losing streak, then there's some doubt that UCLA might not beat USC. But winning that matchup against BYU was huge, not only in that regard, but they're only 1 game back of GCU. GCU is the lone undefeated team in the MPSF, as Champlin led the way with 14 kills, Ido David, 10 kills, Cooper Robinson, 9 kills. UCLA hit 296, which is pretty good for UCLA standards. It's not 491, but still, you have to find ways to win. They did miss 32 serves, but they held BYU to only 3 aces. They also outblocked them yet again. They barely outdug them. And they held BYU to only 45 kills, with Mix Romanis leading the way with 12 kills. Luke Benson adding 10 kills. Missed opportunity for BYU. They could have possibly been in the thick of it in terms of getting at least maybe second place or possibly being in the running to win the MPSF. But they are 1-3. They're a game back of UCLA. So that is a big one. And rounding off the MPSF lineup, we had Pepperdine knocking off Stanford in 4 sets, as Stanford actually saw the return of Will Rotman. And I'm just going to say this, Will Rotman actually did not start the match. He actually came off the bench. But Stanford took the opening set 25-15. They looked like the Stanford I was expecting for this year. But then Pepperdine wound up gentleman sweeping Stanford, winning set 2 25-21, set 3 25-17, and set 4 25-18. The Waves were led by Cole Kachansky and Ryan Barnett, both having 12 kills. Cole Rasick had 9 kills. Here's the thing about Pepperdine. They only had 45 kills compared to Stanford's 53, but Pepperdine hit 392, which I thought was pretty darn good. And they held Stanford to only 4 blocks as a team. Just absolutely amazing. And Pepperdine also had 10 aces compared to Stanford's 4, and they won the service error battle. In other words, they had fewer service errors. Stanford was led by Ryan Duras, who who only played 3 sets and had 12 kills. Alex Rotman had 10 kills. Teo Snui had 9 kills. Will Rotman had 5 kills. I thought this was going to be the return of Will Rotman, but it was spoiled by Pepperdine, and it was a big win for the Waves, as after that Stanford loss, no team is undefeated in the MPSF outside of Grand Canyon. But Stanford was able to get a little bit revenge against the Waves. This time the roles were reversed. Pepperdine won the first set 25-21, but then Stanford gentlemen swept the Waves. But it wasn't as easy as it seemed. All of the sets that Stanford won were decided by 3 points or less, or 2 to 3 points. The second set was 25-23, third set 25-22, and fourth set 25-23. Stanford once again did not start Will Rotman, but he had 9 kills, which I thought was impressive. He had an ace and 3 digs. Teo Snui had 13 kills. Alex Rotman had 11 kills. Nathan Litsky had 9 kills to go along with 3 blocks. Nathaniel Gates had 9 kills, and then Nathan Litsky had 38 assists and 11 digs. Pepperdine was led by Ryan Barnett, who had 20 kills. Cole Kachansky and Cole Rasick both had 10 kills. And again, roles were reversed. Pepperdine had more kills than Stanford, but Stanford had the higher hitting percentage, but not by too much. Only 292 hitting percentage compared to Pepperdine's 276. Pepperdine only had 1 ace and 20 missed serves. It was almost like the Long Beach State match where Pepperdine just struggled in the serving department. Yes, serving tough is essential in men's volleyball, but you have to limit your service errors. The blocks were evenly matched between both teams, both registering 12 as a team, and then Pepperdine outdug Stanford by 9. But Stanford managed to snap their 6-match losing streak. It dated back from when they lost to CSUN, then lost twice to Hawaii, lost twice to UC Irvine, and they lost to Pepperdine in that first match. But they made up for it, winning against Pepperdine and snapping that 6-match losing streak and getting on the board in MPSF play. All right, let's jump to some MIVA action, as the action started on Tuesday, and there was a big matchup that didn't really make my top matches to watch for, but it was a great match nonetheless, as number 7 Ohio State outlasted Purdue Fort Wayne in 5 sets. Ohio State just blew the doors off of the Mastodons in that first set. This was played at Covalli Center, mind you. Ohio State won the first set 25-9. Purdue Fort Wayne managed to win 2 close sets. Now, the second set they won, but it was still close. Ohio State wanted to win that second set, but Purdue Fort Wayne had other plans. They managed to take the second set 25-23. They won the third set 31-29. And there was the possibility of Ohio State being on upset alert, but the Buckeyes won the fourth set 25-23, and they won the fifth set 15-9. Not too many problems in that fifth set, as the Buckeyes were led by Jacob Pasteur, who had 17 kills, Ben Putnam, 11 kills, Daniel Hurley, he only played 4 sets, but he had 10 kills. Cole Young also had 10 kills. Justin Howard had 9 kills. Ohio State almost had 5 different players with 10 or more kills. As the Buckeyes hit 320, they held Purdue Fort Wayne to only a 112 hitting percentage. That was big right there. Ohio State did throw themselves a big block party, having 12.5 blocks compared to Purdue Fort Wayne's 10. The Buckeyes also had 13 service aces. Even though they missed 31 serves, they managed to have a decent service ace service error ratio. As the Mastodons were led by John Dydrich and Mark Frazier, both having 13 kills. But that was kind of where the buck stopped. It was just those two leading the way. Bryce Walker was the next kill leader for Purdue Fort Wayne, having 4 kills. Ohio State had 64 kills as a team. Purdue Fort Wayne only had 36. That's not going to win you a whole lot of matches when it comes to the MIVA, especially since Purdue Fort Wayne only hit 112. Again, 36 kills does not cut it, and they're getting blocked 12.5 times often than not. Then we had more MIVA madness, or MIVA madness. Friday, we had Lindenwood, the little Lindenwood engine that could, taking down number 12 Loyola Chicago in 4 sets. The Lions won the first set 25-21, and they fell in the second set barely, 25-23 to Loyola. Then they narrowly won the next 2 sets. Third set, Lindenwood never trailed, but Loyola of Chicago was able to knot the set up at 24 apiece. But Lindenwood won the last 2 points. Lindenwood won that third set, 26-24. There are only 2 ties, meaning Lindenwood, it was basically 24-24, and then there was only one other time where Loyola Chicago was tied with Lindenwood. Then the fourth set, it was tied all the way. And this was the triumphant turning point of the match. Lindenwood basically had Loyola had their opportunities to push the match to 5, but Lindenwood basically dodged everything that Loyola threw at them, won the fourth set 29-27, 19 ties in that fourth set, as the Lions were led by Ian Schuler, who had 22 kills, AJ Lewis had 14 kills, Clay Weeder had 12 kills, Lindenwood hit 389, and the crazy thing is, Loyola actually hit 441, and unfortunately for the Ramblers, they did not pull out the win. There was not a whole lot of blocking in this match, as Loyola only had 6 blocks, Lindenwood only had 3. Lindenwood did dominate the serve battle, as they had 9 aces to Loyola's 5, and only missed 3 fewer serves than Loyola did. The digs were pretty much deadlocked, as Parker Van Buren led the way with 21 kills. He did make history as he surpassed 1,000 kills over the week, which is good for him. Unfortunately, he'd rather have the win over that. Daniel Fabakovic added 15 kills. Ryan McElliott had 7 kills to go along with 49 assists. Nicodemus or Demi Meyer, as well as Jimmy Meinhardt, both had 6 kills. But I'm just wondering, what happened with Jake Reed? It's Jake Reed. Without Jake Reed, I don't think Loyola Chicago is the explosive team that everyone expects to see. Maybe Jake Reed is out due to injury. If so, then that's bad news for the Ramblers. But they did manage to bounce back against the Lions of Lindenwood, winning the second matchup in 4 sets. Loyola won the first set 25-23. They never trailed one at one point, but there was only one tie, and Lindenwood did all that they could to try to take that first set. They managed to carry the momentum into set 2, winning it 25-20, but Loyola never trailed after that point, as Loyola took the next 2 sets, 25-14 and 25-17. The Ramblers were led by Parker Van Buren, 17 kills, Daniel Fabakovic, 15 kills, 407 hitting percentage, Jack Yentz, 12 kills, JJ Sawa, he had 15 digs. That was big right there, as he actually played libero, which I thought was pretty good. Lions were led by AJ Lewis, 16 kills, Clay Weeder, 12 kills, Ian Schuler, 10 kills and 13 digs, but it wasn't enough to pull off the second upset. Oh, that was a tough one. Jumping over to the EIVA, we had Charleston knocking off number 17, George Mason. Now, here's the thing with this match. George Mason, their inside track to possibly being second place was starting to look a little bit more clear. You're about to find out why. But losing to Charleston, oh, how George Mason wishes they had a mulligan when it came to this match. First set, Charleston won that 25-18. Then George Mason won the second set 25-20. Then Charleston wound up winning the next 2 sets 26-24. Again, George Mason would love to have a mulligan when it comes to this match. These are the types of matches that basically wind up costing you. And these are the type of teams that you cannot underestimate. Charleston, being such a young team, losing a lot in terms of graduation, in terms of its players. They had 3 different players with 10 or more kills. Max Neeson, Jesse Ross Delancey, and Garrett Schnitker, all 3 of them having 10 kills, like I mentioned. Charleston hit 260, which wasn't any better than George Mason's 255. Both teams were pretty high in the hitting error department. Charleston had 7 fewer kills than the Patriots, as George Mason was led by Liam French, who had 16 kills, Omar Hoyos, 13 kills, Sam Peters, 9 kills. My takeaway for Charleston is this. it's about time they got themselves a big-time win. And yes, this isn't the biggest win, but considering they've had such a rough year, but I will just give them this. This is probably what could get them in that running of possibly getting a better seed. I think it's all safe to say that Penn State is... The EIVA is going to run through Penn State. There's no doubt about that. Penn State managed to defeat NJIT both times. They're 4-0. They're the only undefeated team in EIVA play, as George Mason actually paid Charleston back for the loss. They actually managed to beat them in 5. That was a huge win. Then we jumped to Friday. Elsewhere in the EIVA, we had Princeton sweeping Harvard, but the second match, Harvard managed to take down number 13 Princeton. Regardless, Princeton fell to Harvard. It was a big loss for Princeton. What a icky time to be a Princeton fan. And this is no disrespect to Sam Schweisky's team. His team does an excellent job, but this has just been rough times for the Tigers. This match, Harvard took the first 2 sets by scores of 25-17 and 25-23. Then the third set, Princeton saw some life. They dominated that third set, winning it 25-16. And they had their chances in the fourth set, but Harvard was able to snatch it, win the fourth set, 26-24. Huge win for Harvard. And for Princeton, they're now under 500. Again, really tough times for Princeton, losing in Cambridge to Harvard. This was a tough one. But something you got to realize is that the EIVA, as Mark Pavlik put it, it's not your grandfather's EIVA. Problem is with Princeton, they held Harvard to only 45 kills, and only one player had double-digit kills, with Zach Birdie leading the way with 11 kills. Logan Shepard and Owen Fanning both having 8 kills. I kept trying to tell y'all, Harvard didn't lose anyone big in terms of their graduation. They didn't lose anyone big when it came to my preseason show. So they were kind of a sneaky under-the-radar team. The problem is that they didn't have the flashy All-Americans like Penn State had. That was the big thing right there. Shepard also added 13 digs. So this was probably the biggest win for Harvard in probably quite a while. I want to say that this is their first ranked win in quite some time. Princeton had Nairo and Omene leading the way with 19 kills, but Princeton only hit 179. Ben Harrington and Jameson Vaquero both had 7 kills. Gavin Lasing had 6 kills. So the takeaway for Princeton is this. Matt Sue also had 12 digs, by the way. So takeaway for Princeton is this. I don't know what's going on with them, but they really need to hit the reset button and basically recharge the batteries. They got to clear everything. They have to basically find out what's going on with them, because if they're on the path of Penn State in terms of the EIVA tournament, that's a scary path to be on. Because finishing 4th or 5th will get them a most likely date with Penn State in the EIVA tournament. And even though Princeton has beaten Penn State in the EIVA tournament, it just could be a recipe for disaster, because Penn State is still playing pretty darn good. Then we go to Big West action. The Big West kicked off last week as UC San Diego, they pulled off a big win, probably one of their bigger wins that they've had not named USC, beating UC Santa Barbara at home in 4. The Tritons took the first 2 sets 25-19 and 25-18. Then the Gauchos rebounded nicely, took the third set 25-20. Then the fourth set, it was rather tight, 10 ties, but UC San Diego was able to pull away late, win the fourth set 25-19. The young Tritons, they pull off a very impressive win. They start Big West Conference Playoff 1-0, and that can go a long way just because UC Santa Barbara, UC San Diego, and CSUN are all lumped together, and my big thing was, when it came to that Big West Conference between those 3 teams, which team is going to be winning at least one Big West Conference tournament match, or which team is going to be getting the 4 and 5 seed, and which team will be getting the 6 seed. As Sebastian Lara led the way for the Tritons with 13 kills, he was a player I was talking about in my preview. He transferred from Orange Coast College, which he actually bounced back from Loyola Chicago, but he helped the Pirates win the state championship. Now he's helping UC San Diego win big-time matches. Anthony Sherfan also had 12 kills. He hit 323. Lara hit 571. UC San Diego as a team, they hit 402. And they also dominated the block game. They had 13 blocks compared to UC Santa Barbara's 7. The Gauchos were led by Jess Bianchi, who had 19 kills. But that was kind of where the buck stopped, as Ben Court, Josh Aruya, and Sam Meister all had 6 kills. Tough loss for the Gauchos. But UC San Diego, they took their lumps in non-conference play. They had several opportunities where they could have pulled off big wins. They lost to the likes of Ohio State. That was tough. And then they lost to Grand Canyon. This is actually the 3rd ranked win for UC San Diego. And I know this is kind of an irrelevant stat, but UC San Diego's won 3 in a row. Yes, they beat the SIAC teams, but it still goes a long way just because they need all the momentum they can get. Because this week, they're on the road against UC Irvine. They have UC Irvine on Sunday at UC Irvine at Crawford Hall, and then Friday they're at home at Lion Tree Arena against the Anteaters. And speaking of Big West Conference play, I attended a very fun matchup. Long Beach State, number 1 Long Beach State hosting number 15 Lewis. It was actually a pretty good matchup. Long Beach State did take that first set 25-19. Alan Knight pretty much said it best. They didn't play the best in set 1, as the first half of that set, it was basically neck and neck. Lewis was giving everything that they had against Long Beach State. The problem was the Beach basically pulled away in that first set. The second set was kind of the opposite. Lewis actually led for the most part in that second set, and then Long Beach State was able to catch up. But unfortunately, it took two set points, but Long Beach State just hit it long, and Lewis took the second set. That must have given Lewis fans something to smile about. But then Long Beach State was able to overcome a sluggish start. They took the third set, 25-15. And then the fourth set, this was a very interesting set. Alan Knipe, unfortunately, lost 2 challenges prior to this fourth set. And he actually had 1 challenge. There was a almost 40-second rally, and Lewis was able to win it. But then one of Alan Knipe's players, Dane Hillis, he saw that the ball was down on the floor instead of being pancaked. So Alan goes to his challenge card. He challenges it. He risked the possibility of either not having any more challenges, but he said he was confident in his player. And, even the bench is contributing to Long Beach State's wins. Not just the energy and whatnot, but seeing that if any ball was down and whatnot. So Dane Hillis is kind of a mini MVP, as eventually Long Beach State took that fourth set 25-19. Long Beach State never trailed, but Lewis gave everything that they had. They won. I was kind of hoping that this one was going to go 5, but Long Beach State said, no sirree, Bob. But Lewis was able to bounce back nicely. They took down CSUN, number 16 CSUN, on the road in 5. Now, I will just say this. I did interview Dan Friend, the head coach of Lewis, but unfortunately technology sucks, and my interview had no audio. I don't know how my mics weren't on, but it was basically sad times. But I will say Lewis looked very good in this match. Despite almost getting reverse swept, Lewis was able to put up some good stats, although they barely got outblocked, they barely outdug their opponent. They hit 259 compared to CSUN's 211, which is pretty solid. Lewis only missed 12 serves, and I only say only because they missed 22 the previous night against Long Beach State, as Lewis was led by Max Roque, who had 13 kills. Cyver Drolsum had 10 kills. In the match against Long Beach State, Lewis had no player with double-digit kills, and I basically kind of told Dan Friend, who's kind of your Tyler Mitchum, because that is a reference of who is kind of the number 1 guy, or who's kind of the big hitter for your team. CSUN was led by Kyle Hobus, who had 25 kills, Griffin Walters, 11 kills, Jalen Phillips, 10 kills, but it wasn't enough as Lewis pulled off a split in their Big West series against Long Beach State and Lewis. And I thought that was a pretty successful weekend for Lewis. Lewis obviously didn't beat Long Beach State, but again, they would have had to play some pretty darn good volleyball in order to beat Long Beach State. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and Lewis took the loss, but they bounced back nicely, winning in 5 over the Matadors. As we go into this week's AVCA Men's Volleyball Coaches Bowl, there's a new number one, like I mentioned. Grand Canyon, finally for the first time in its program's history, is number one in the AVCA Men's Volleyball Coaches Poll. Larry B in the chat room says, no one likes GCU, LOL, go Lancers. He says that in reference of GCU being the rival of California Baptist. And yeah, unfortunately, it's a tough time to be a CBU fan, especially since there's no men's volleyball anymore. But it is what it is. Grand Canyon is the new number one. Long Beach State is now number two, only by 6 points. Here's the thing about that. I definitely think Grand Canyon was deserving of being number one. Long Beach State losing that set to Lewis was a big red flag, and I'm glad everyone thought that Long Beach State did not deserve to be ranked number one. And this is no disrespect to Long Beach State. Long Beach State is a fantastic team, but they haven't really had, other than UCLA and maybe Pepperdine, they haven't had a big-time convincing win. I mean, Pepperdine was a convincing win, but Pepperdine kept shooting themselves in the foot, and that was Pepperdine's first true test. And they also struggled with the likes of St. Francis, George Mason, NJIT. They lost a set to Lewis. And I'm not saying they struggled as they played horribly, but they lost sets to those teams, and that kind of was my big red flag right there for Long Beach State. Hawaii was third in the coaches poll. UCLA is fourth. UC Irvine is fifth. Those three stay put. BYU jumps to number 6 after their win over UCLA. Even though they split with UCLA, I thought it was an impressive win, beating UCLA on your home turf. Ohio State stay put at 7. Stanford dropped to 8 after splitting with Pepperdine. And I will give Stanford credit. Snapping that 6-game losing streak was big because they actually won in Pepperdine for the first time since 2016. That was so huge for the Cardinal because if they go on a 7-game losing streak after they started the season off winning their first 7 games, that's trouble in paradise for the Cardinal, especially since they've got Grand Canyon this week. Then the remaining top 10, Penn State stays put at 9. Pepperdine jumps back into the top 10 as USC and Pepperdine switch spots. Ball State rises to number 12. They've got a pretty big week. Loyola Chicago went down 1 spot after their tough loss to Lindenwood. Lewis jumped up a spot, even though they lost to Long Beach State and they barely beat CSUN in 5. But still good, successful week regardless. Princeton dropped to number 15, so they were 14 last week, but losing to Harvard brought them down a peg, even though they swept Harvard the first go-around. CSUN stayed put at 16, as well as George Mason, even though George Mason lost to Charleston. 18 is UC San Diego. They went up 2 spots. If you remember last week, they were tied for number 20 with Damon, but UC San Diego went up 2 spots with that big win over UC Santa Barbara at home. Lincoln Memorial, or LMU, they're number 19, and Damon is number 20. They're all alone at number 20, so the Gauchos are the only team that falls out of the top 20 rankings. And rightfully so, just because the Gauchos, they haven't been ultimately as impressive, and losing to UC San Diego was kind of the nail in the coffin for getting them out of the top 20. All right, so there's that right there, and let's go over the off the block media poll because that actually got released. So normally the off the block media poll gets released on Tuesday, and I normally do my show on Monday. But since I had a PA announce and I covered some high school boys volleyball, I wasn't able to go over the off the block on X, formerly known as Twitter. Now we get to go over the off the block media poll this week, and that's not it. So I will just say that this week's Off the Block media poll, let's just say there's some movement. So, Off the Block media poll. So, 10 through 6 consists of Pepperdine at 10, Stanford at 9, BYU at 8, Ohio State at 7, and Penn State at 6. 5 through 1 consists of UC Irvine at 5, UCLA at 4, Hawaii at 3, Long Beach State at 2, and the new number 1 in the Off the Block national media poll is Grand Canyon. So, here's how I voted. I voted Pepperdine at 10, Stanford at 9, BYU at 8, Ohio State at 7, UC Irvine, or UC Irvine at 6. I put Penn State at 5. I thought Penn State was a little bit more deserving, even though UC Irvine does have some pretty solid wins. But then again, when I look back at it, Penn State hasn't really beaten anybody too much, and they did kind of struggle against NJIT. They lost the first set against NJIT in one of their matches, but then rebounded to take the next 3 sets. So I can understand putting UC Irvine ahead of Penn State. UCLA I put at 4 just because obviously they have a win over Long Beach State, which was the former number 1. They also were able to split their series against BYU. They beat Penn State. They have the head-to-head over them. They beat UC Irvine twice. Hawaii is number 3 just because I think Hawaii is deserving of it. I know they only played Missouri S&T, but I will say they only have 1 loss. And if it weren't for that unfortunate set 5 collapse, Hawaii is probably undefeated, and we're having the conversation of who deserves to be number 1 more, Hawaii or Grand Canyon. And believe it or not, those two actually meet next week, and let's just say there's going to be some fireworks in Hawaii. And then I put Long Beach State at 2 just because losing that second set to Lewis, and they haven't really been overly as great as Grand Canyon has, I just think is a big fat red flag. So I think for Grand Canyon, they've taken down a lot of good opponents, most of which were in the top 10. Long Beach State's they have 2 top 10 wins. Pepperdine, but then again, Pepperdine hadn't really been battle tested. And then UCLA, which UCLA obviously was big. But other than that, no true big wins for Long Beach State outside of UCLA and BYU. And then, like I mentioned with Grand Canyon, they swept the season series with USC and BYU, sweeping BYU both times, mind you. I should also mention that John Stanley actually played in the UCLA match, or at least one of them, as despite an ankle injury, he managed to get a kill and a service ace in one of the matches. So John Stanley, despite having that vicious and ugly, not vicious, but that very ugly ankle injury against Grand Canyon last week or 2 weeks ago, it's great to see him in good spirits. So all in all, my off-the-block media poll ballot was nearly the same as the media poll altogether. I just unfortunately messed up on UC Irvine and Penn State, and yes, now I'm looking back at it, but I also gave Penn State the slight edge just because they have 2 wins over a number 1 team, whereas UC Irvine, they beat Stanford twice, but they didn't have Will Rotman. Ohio State didn't have Jacob Pasteur in one of the matches that Penn State beat Ohio State. But all in all, I guess what truly matters is wins and losses. But I can give UC Irvine a little bit of a pass on that, and I'll definitely take into consideration UC Irvine's matches this week. And if they pass both matches with flying colors against UC San Diego, I'll definitely put UC Irvine ahead of Penn State in next week's Off the Block National Men's Volleyball Media Poll. All right, but that is going to do it for this week's Off the Block National Media Poll. So last week's, I don't know if I went over last week's, but last week's was USC at 10, BYU 9, Stanford 8, Ohio State 7, UC Irvine 6, Penn State 5, Hawaii 4, UCLA 3, Grand Canyon 2, and Long Beach State number 1. Now, here's the thing. I don't know why UC Irvine got a pass for beating just Concordia no, the previous week was them beating Stanford twice. But I just don't understand why UC Irvine gets a bit of a pass for just beating Concordia Irvine. Nothing against the Golden Eagles. I know one of their wins is against a very talented NAIA team, but I don't know. I kind of disagree with putting Penn State. You could make the case for putting Penn State and UC Irvine at 4 and 5 in the Off the Block Media Poll, or 6 and 5 in terms of the Off the Block Media Poll, but it's debatable. All right, but that's that for some NCAA men's volleyball talk. We'll circle the wagons. We'll circle the wagons when it comes to that. in the second half of the show. But we have some NAIA men's volleyball discussion, and I checked out a really good matchup this past Saturday. It was at Calvary Chapel High School. It was number 3 Vanguard University hosting number 2 Masters College. I'm just going to get this out of the way right here. I really think that this match deserved a bit of a better place, a bit of a better venue than a high school. Apparently there was 250 in attendance. I think there was a little bit more than 250 in attendance. It was the bleachers were packed, that's for sure, but this obviously felt like such a weird college volleyball match. It was at a high school gym. No high-level college volleyball match should be ever at a high school gym. But here's the thing about Vanguard. Their gymnasium is under renovation, and I'm hoping it'll be back up and running in like the next volleyball season, if not 2025, or as Vanguard calls it, the pit. And the pit was kind of the pit back then at Vanguard University was kind of the equivalent of a high school gym. But even that was a good college venue. The bleachers were close to the court, so hopefully for Vanguard's sake, they're able to have a good renovated gym by the time they have their next season, which will be in the MPSF. But in this matchup against Masters College, Vanguard in the first set, they actually dropped the first set. They actually were down 24-22, but they tied it up at 24 apiece. However, the Masters College was able to win the next 2 points, winning the first set 26-24. They won the next set 25-23. Unfortunately for Vanguard, the errors just kept biting them in the butt as they actually missed a whole bunch of serves. I think they missed 10 in set 2 alone. They missed 28 altogether. But in that third set, they really started to come alive. Will Anderson, remember his name. He was named the NAIA Attacker of the Week for the NAIA. He helped Will Vanguard to the third set win 25-23. Then we had a little bit of a match. Then the fourth set, Vanguard was able to pull away from the Masters College late as they took the fourth set 25-20, forcing a fifth set. And it was at that moment I was thinking, now we have ourselves a barn burner. And then in the fifth set, Vanguard only had one time as Will Anderson was just bombing serves. He was just blasting serves. If you have never seen Will Anderson play at the junior college level, at OCC in his sophomore year, and at Vanguard, he is a beast. I basically said on Instagram, he's one of the better opposites I've covered in college volleyball. And Vanguard just dominated that fifth set, winning it 15-4 as they won off of a walk-off service ace. But here's the thing about that. Will Anderson's serve was super tough. It was passed off the ceiling and onto the other side. When that occurs, that basically means the ball is passed out of play. That just goes to show how low the ceiling was at Calvary Chapel High School. And unfortunately, Vanguard, they also play their matches at OCC, but unfortunately the availability was just not there. So unfortunately for Vanguard, they have to play their games or their matches at Calvary Chapel. But again, one day they will eventually find their way back to home, aka the pit at Vanguard University. Will Anderson led the way with 22 kills. He had 7 service aces. The dude was a freaking animal. Will Anderson was him. And unfortunately for the Masters College, they let Will Anderson cook. They let him cook, and they basically got burnt. They got burnt on that deal. As Vanguard hit 800 in that fifth set, but most of their points were basically either errors from the Masters College or service aces from Will Anderson. Vanguard's next kill leader was Andrew Shevland, who had 7 kills. Reza Tamasabi had 6 kills. Vanguard as a team hit 360. They actually increased their hitting percentage quite nicely after the fourth set, as they were hitting in the 200s for sets 1 through 3. They hit 526 in that fourth set, and then the fifth set, they either were blasting serves, capitalizing on the Masters College's errors, or they were just getting aces. Regardless, Vanguard pulled off the reverse sweep. They wound up winning that fifth set, mind you, 15-4. Masters College only had 2 kills in that fifth set, as their leader in terms of kills was Mason Mullins, who had 12 kills. He hit 857. 857, and unfortunately the Masters College lost. Everyone else didn't really give him too much of a backup plan. Here's the thing about the Masters, though, and this is not to try to stir the pot with anything, but the Masters College has a bunch of bounce backs. They have players like Patrick Paragas, former UC Santa Barbara player. Diego Perez, he was playing outside hitter. His primary position is libero, but he was blasting kills. He's only 5'11", and this dude was basically just blowing up the block. Braden Van Groningen, his brother Jacob is on Vanguard, so the two got to face each other. Braden had 7 kills. The Masters College only hit 181, as Vanguard also had 16 blocks as a team. It was big. It was also on account that Masters College unfortunately could not pass all that well. Though the Masters College did have 11 aces. They missed 23 serves, however, and their block wasn't really all that existent. They only had 4 blocks. They were blocking early on, but unfortunately the block just went away. But like I said, Vanguard, they had 16 blocks of their own as a team. And Vanguard, they missed 28 serves, but they had 17 service aces. And like I said, 17 of them came from Will Anderson. Ryan Smith also had 3 service aces. So my takeaway for this matchup is this. This was such a fun matchup. I understand, and I get it. You have to. Yeah, there are certain circumstances, but the match itself lived up to the hype. I was just so darn impressed with Vanguard and how they came back. For the Masters College, them being the number 1 team, obviously they had a target painted on their back, but so did Vanguard. Vanguard also beat the Masters College in the NAIA semifinals last season, en route to winning the NAIA championship. So both these teams had targets on their backs. The Masters College, prior to this loss, their lone loss was to Concordia Irvine, but this doesn't take away from the great season that they're having. They have a win over CSUN. And this is the thing that people forget about the Masters College. They've beaten some pretty darn good teams. Not just in the NCAA men's volleyball aspect. They've beaten some pretty darn good teams in the NAIA aspect. They beat Benedictine. They also beat Park of Missouri. That's Park's only loss, and they're still ranked number 2 in the nation. I can only imagine what's going to happen with Vanguard and Park now that they're taking into consideration that Vanguard managed to win this matchup. Now, Vanguard did lose their first 2 sets of the season, but they rebounded nicely, and sometimes it just takes that little bit of a slow start, because obviously it's the number 1 match, and it was a packed house. The student section was rocking. Again, this is one of those moments where you wish you had a big old gymnasium, kind of like the Pyramid or the Brent Event Center or Stan Sheriff Center or Galen Center or Pauley Pavilion. But unfortunately for Vanguard, they had to play at Calvary Chapel High School, but you have to make it work somehow. All in all, this was a great match, and this might not be the last time I cover Vanguard men's volleyball. I really want to cover some more just because it's pretty much in my neck of the woods. Vanguard is coached by Brian Rofer. He actually is a former UCLA men's volleyball player under the legendary Al Skates. He also was an assistant for Al Skates back when he was the head coach before he stepped down and passed the reins over to John Speraw. So, all in all, Vanguard, I'm definitely coming back there for more action. They also play Ottawa of Arizona, or UZA, O-U-Z-A-Z, or UAZ. Regardless, they're playing Ottawa University of Arizona on the 8th, which is actually going to be the same day Long Beach State plays UC Santa Barbara. So I'm kind of conflicted when it comes to choosing between those two. I might just choose Vanguard, but we'll see what happens going forward. So that's going to do it for that NAIA little bit of thing. But I do one day hope that I will get to see a Vanguard match when Vanguard plays at its university and not in a high school gym. I'll also just say Vanguard is moving to the MPSF next season, and this is obviously tough for Vanguard just because next year, they're actually not looking forward to next year. They're not looking that far ahead, but Will Anderson is a senior Ryan Smith, the setter, who's 6'9", is a senior. So Vanguard's going to have a whole different look to them once they enter the MPSF. So this is kind of the last dance for Vanguard and Menlo. I kept saying that the Master's College is also moving to the MPSF, but that's not true. The Master's College is staying put in the MPSF, and it's going to be Menlo moving to the MPSF along with Vanguard. So I'm looking forward to seeing Vanguard in the MPSF when they play the likes of UCLA and USC, Stanford, Grand Canyon, BYU. It'll be pretty fun if you ask me, because Vanguard as a school is moving to NCAA Division II. And unfortunately for NCAA men's volleyball, there is no separate Division II. There's only Division I and II, or National Collegiate as the correct vernacular is called. But I digress. All right, that's going to do it for the first half of the show. We have another half going as we'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we have some Pro Volleyball Federation to discuss. We also have a little 3C2A men's volleyball to discuss, and we have some high school volleyball to discuss. So keep it locked here. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with the second half of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out Adam Karnick every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 1 hour before I go live with Set Point. Also check out Sin City Sports with Cale Henderson. He does an excellent job talking all things Las Vegas sports, including a little bit of Las Vegas thrill. So Larry B says he's still here, thanks. And also Ralph Calise is in the chat room. He says, let's start the day off with a great show. Let's go! And he also says, a legend talking and knowing volleyball. Well, I appreciate that, Ralph. All right, let's get on into the second half of the show. All right, so we'll talk a little bit of some Pro Volleyball Federation. So I know everyone likes the Pro Volleyball Federation, and I got to give the people what they want because why not? So the league, yeah. Week 5 started on Wednesday when the Columbus Fury hosted the Omaha Supernovas. Now, as we all know last week, Columbus Fury did not have a win going into this week, and they hadn't played a match in quite a while prior to this. As the previous week, they played their first match, and they wound up getting, I wouldn't say hosed, but they lost in 3 sets. But this match, oh my god, this match was quite nice. They actually had a massive turnout. They had over 9,100 in attendance, and they didn't disappoint at Nationwide Arena, as they wound up beating the Omaha Supernovas 25-12, 25-21, 23-25, and 25-23. Now, the first set, it was just all Columbus. Columbus spanked Omaha, and then second set was pretty much all Columbus. I mean, Omaha kind of called it second wind, but Columbus was basically able to finish strong. And then the third set, it was quite tight. Omaha actually led 24-20, but then Columbus came back, got within 1, but unfortunately they hit it out. It was a mistimed ball as it went long, and that kind of gave Omaha some life, but Columbus was able to take the fourth set by storm. However, they almost kind of relinquished that set the way Omaha nearly relinquished the third set, as they needed one more kill, but it didn't come until they were up 24-23, and Asia O'Neal, everyone's favorite middle blocker from Texas, knocked down the kill to basically give the Columbus Fury the win. And I was downright impressed. Beating a team like Omaha is no easy feat, especially when you have no wins. But that's kind of the dangerous team right there. A no-win team is the most dangerous team, as Reagan Cooper led the way with 22 kills and 12 digs. Asia O'Neal, 15 kills, 4 blocks. Megan Courtney Lush, 11 kills and 11 digs. She played outside. The last time she played outside, she didn't even have the Lush in her first name. I think the last time she played outside was back in her days at Washington and before she played libero. But again, notice how her name is Courtney Lush. She got married, and now she's no longer Megan Courtney. She's now Megan Courtney Lush. Sam Drexel had 9 kills to go along with 11 digs. Ray Marile Santos had 27 assists and led the team with 21 digs. Valeria Leon had 14 digs. Brooke Donaviller led the Supernovas with 13 kills and 16 digs. Allison Mayfield, 11 kills, 6 digs. Jess Shaban Landsman, 9 kills, 7 digs, 2 aces. Natalia Valentina Anderson, 36 assists and 12 digs. The crazy thing is that the Fury had 0 aces, which I'm surprised they wound up winning. But then again, Omaha missed 10 serves, and they had only 2 aces of their own. So I'll give the Supernovas a pass on this, but for Columbus, this is a huge win. And what better way to get your first ever win than to beat one of the favorites to win it all? As John Felipe says, Teran, I know you were killing it, brother. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. So that was Wednesday's match. Thursday's match, we had the Orlando Valkyries defeating the Vegas Thrill 25-23, 25-18, 20-25, and 30-28. That fourth set, oh my goodness. Vegas would like to have a re-roll when it comes to that. Or a respin. In terms of like Las Vegas terminology regarding, or a re-deal. They'd like to have a respin, a re-deal, or a re-roll regarding that first, or that fourth set. But Orlando was able to eke it out, winning on the road. Jill Gillen, everyone's favorite Arkansas Razorback, had 21 kills, 10 digs. Adora Ane had 18 kills and 20 digs. Casimir Brown, 11 kills. Johnny Teeler, 9 kills and 9 digs. Wilmer Rivera, 52 assists and 9 digs. George Murphy, 16 digs. Kat Bell led the Vegas Thrill with 22 kills and 13 digs. Molly McCage, 11 kills, 4 blocks and 4 digs. Alicia Glass-Childress, 41 assists and 6 digs. And Kylie Murr, 21 digs. So the takeaway for Orlando is this. They kind of needed this just because in the event that Orlando and Vegas are basically the 4 and 5 seed, that could go down to who has either the series advantage or who basically has the more points. And every win is now precious because now we have the Columbus Fury basically winning matches as well. So there's not going to be any one team that basically stinks. We're now getting the whole any given week or any given Sunday or any given day point of the Pro Volleyball Federation. Speaking of any given day, all right, this matchup, San Diego Mojo versus Grand Rapids Rise at the Viejas Arena. Now, I really want to go to this match. However, I hate having to admit this over the air, but I just don't have the money. I told this to pretty much all my buddies, at Avid Volley in particular. He said, I would go to the San Diego Mojo match, but I'm not swimming in cash, and I'm not covering this as a member of the media. And unless I'm covering a match as a member of the media and I don't have to spend money on a ticket and I get to interview coaches and players, I just don't see me covering this one. That's why I kind of went to Long Beach State's match against Lewis. But also, after seeing that matchup between the Vegas Thrill and the San Diego Mojo from last week, I will just say that was kind of a red flag as well. But this one, oh my goodness. This first set, keep in mind the San Diego Mojo hadn't even won a set, let alone a match, before going into this match against Grand Rapids Rise. They won the first set 36-34. That is probably the longest set in Pro Volleyball Federation in its infancy stage. Now watch as there's going to be a set that's going to be decided in the 40s. But then the Grand Rapids Rise took that second set 27-25, but the Mojo was able to were able to eke out a win in that third set 25-23, and they eked out the win in that fourth set 25-23. Every set was decided by 2 points, but the Grand Rapids Rise were on the short end of the stick as the San Diego Mojo finally got their first win of the season. And I'm willing to bet all of my money, and I'm willing to bet the farm that Nick England and the San Diego Wild of the NVA were in attendance. Nick England said they would be there. And the San Diego Mojo just impressed me. I was like, oh my god, it actually happened. So there's not going to be a team that is winless this season. And everyone was thinking, oh, San Diego Mojo is going to go winless in the PVF. Nope. San Diego Mojo has at least one win. As the Mojo were led by Temi Thomas Ailara, who had 25 kills and 10 digs. Lindsay Vander Wade. Lindsay Vander Wade had 14 kills and 17 digs. Hannah Tapp, 11 kills. Nutsara Tomcon had 59 assists and 18 digs. Marie Shara Medina Venegas had 19 digs to go along with 9 assists. And Valeria Papa had 5 kills and 9 digs. Emilia Dimitrova had 17 kills and 13 digs. Simone Abbott also had 17 kills to go along with 8 digs. Claire Chaussee had such a quiet night, 10 kills and 8 digs. Sarah Sponsel, 26 digs. And Maren Grote, 8 kills and 3 blocks. So my takeaway for the Mojo is this. for a team that hadn't won a set, let alone a match, they made the most of their opportunity against one of the better teams, if not the best team at that point. So I will just say, I'm downright impressed by the Wild, and I didn't get the number of how many were in attendance in regards to that match, but I will just say, for those that showed up and showed out, kudos to you, because it's not easy to root for a team that is struggling and whatnot. So this home matchup between the San Diego Mojo and the Vegas Thrill had, not the Vegas Thrill and the San Diego Mojo. The Grand Rapids Rise and the San Diego Mojo had, can we get a drum roll, please? $6,020. So that's not bad. I mean, yes, I won't say that there aren't volleyball fans in San Diego or there aren't volleyball fans in California, because obviously there's volleyball fans in California. But it's still pretty good. It's only going to get better, and hopefully we can get more fans out to the San Diego area. Well, by we, I mean volleyball content creators or the PVF and whatnot. So, but all in all, for San Diego Mojo, them getting their first win of the season was so special for them, especially on their home floor. That was the biggest and most special thing, and that's my biggest takeaway for the Mojo. Getting their first win of the season and in their ever history on their home floor was definitely something special. And for Mojo fans, I would not give up hope on the Mojo. Who knows? Maybe they can actually turn it around. For the Grand Rapids Rise, my takeaway for them is this. This is kind of as bleh of a loss you'll get. Yes, they had to go across the country, but I will just say this could have totally been avoided. But I will give credit where credit's due when it comes to the San Diego Mojo. They slowed down Claire Chaussee. Only 10 kills when I think she averages more than that. So I think the Mojo just did a great job of containing her and slowing her down. But that's why you have other players to pick up the slack, such as Simone Abbott, Maren Grote, and Emilia Dimitrova. Then on Saturday, we had the Columbus Fury sweeping the Las Vegas Thrill at Dollar Loan Center in Viva Las Vegas. Reagan Cooper had 15 kills. Megan Courtney Lush had 10 kills and 9 digs. Caitlin Horde had 4 kills, 4 blocks, and 2 aces. Hannah Max led the Thrill with 15 kills and 8 digs. Saskia Hippe had 10 kills and 8 digs. Kylie Murr had 11 digs. So, I don't know about y'all, but the Columbus Fury did a great job of picking up where they left off following that win over the Omaha Supernovas. Normally, when you face an opponent, you win against a really good team. Sometimes the win gets to you and makes you say, oh, we just beat one of the better teams out there. We're that invincible. And then the next matchup, dud. However, for the Columbus Fury, it kind of helps when they had most of their players. And I know they didn't have I think it was this matchup where they didn't have Asia O'Neal. And yes, it was this matchup. And that's kind of a tough loss. But having Reagan Cooper step up, as well as Megan Courtney Lush, that's big right there. And Caitlin Horde has also been coming alive for the Columbus Fury as well. So this is kind of a dangerous team right here. For the Thrill, my takeaway for them is this. That first set, and maybe the second set, was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. If they take one, if not both of those sets, they're in a much better situation at home. But being down 0-2 and the home crowd getting the life sucked out of them is kind of tough. And that's kind of where you got to generate your own energy, kind of like how Omaha did against Atlanta. But again, still a long season, but not an ideal loss. And then on Sunday, we had the Omaha Supernovas defeating the Orlando Valkyries 30-28, 17-25, 25-23, and 25-18. The first set, the Valkyries were leading for the most part in that set. And then the Supernovas pushed it into overtime. And then eventually the Supernovas won that first set. And that was kind of the momentum stealer that Omaha needed. If they lose that first set, they might be going 5. And winning that first set was momentum because they won the third set in very close fashion as well, even when Orlando was trying to make a push to come back and win that third set. Unfortunately, Orlando just made one too many errors, and if they don't make those errors, maybe Orlando is winning this one in 3, because there are those small little errors that basically swing the momentum to the other team, and Orlando just made too many to Omaha, as the Supernovas were led by Brooke Nuneviller, who had 15 kills and 14 digs. Maggie Cartwright, who only played 2 sets, had 10 kills, 2 blocks, and 4 digs. Tori Dixon had 8 kills, 2 blocks, and an ace. Jess Shaban-Landsman had 7 kills and 7 digs. Jill Gillen led Orlando with 19 kills and 4 blocks. Ajani Teeler had 13 kills and 4 blocks. Adora Ane had 2 aces, 2 blocks, and 13 kills. Betty De La Cruz had 16 digs and 9 kills. So my biggest takeaway for Omaha is this. They needed this win so badly, because the last time they played, they lost to the Columbus Fury. If they had lost 2 in a row, that could have been a little detrimental to them being in the standings. But again, it's super early, but winning on the road is never an easy feat. And I'm impressed with how Omaha was able to respond after losing to Columbus. And speaking of Columbus, that's a perfect segue to go into yesterday's match, where the Columbus Fury managed to take down the Las Vegas Thrill at Nationwide Arena, 25-23, 22-25, 25-21, and 25-23. This was a semi-big win for the Columbus Fury, because they went 3-0. That was huge right there. Going 3-0 in a week after you lost your first 2 matches, just amazing right there. So I am just overall impressed, as Reagan Cooper led the way for Columbus with 21 kills. Caitlin Horde had 11 kills. Janae Moore had 9 kills. Hannah Maddox had 15 kills and 3 blocks. Molly McCage had 3 blocks, an ace, and 13 kills. And actually, Maddox had 3 aces, not 3 blocks. So my apologies on that. So Maddox had 3 aces and 15 kills. So all in all, for Columbus, this was such a huge week for them. And honestly, if they have to capitalize on this week. They have to capitalize. I know there was only 2,714 in attendance, but that's probably, according to the PVF, that's probably because it's a Monday match, and people are still probably getting off work, or they're dreading the rest of the week. I mean, trust me, that's kind of the reason why I do set point on Mondays as opposed to Tuesdays. But for the Columbus Fury, them beating the Thrill twice in the span of 3 days is huge. And that winning streak goes a long way, just because they could, hence the word could, possibly turn it around, especially since they're getting all their players back. I know they have Asia O'Neal out with an ankle injury, but here's hoping that the ankle injury isn't too terrible and Reagan Cooper doesn't have to carry the team. So I'm just overall impressed by the Columbus Fury. That was probably their best week they're going to be having in a while. And the thing they got to do is they got to keep running with it. They can't slow down for anybody. All right, so this week in the PVF, Week 6 starts on Thursday when the Omaha Supernovas head down to Gas South Arena to take on the Atlanta Vibe. All right. This is going to be very fun times for this matchup. This is a rematch of the first ever PVF matchup. This time Atlanta's hosting. I will just say this. I would not be surprised if Omaha wound up winning, because they've got some good momentum, and last week the Atlanta Vibe did not play, so there could be some rust. However, Omaha, they can't get too high on some of these wins. They are coming off of a win over Orlando. If I had to guess, I'll just go on and say that I think Omaha is probably going to bounce. I wouldn't say bounce back, but they're going to keep their momentum going, and they're going to basically get revenge on the Atlanta Vibe. But don't be surprised if the Atlanta Vibe do find a way to, win this one. And we actually have a doubleheader on Thursday. We also have Omaha at Atlanta, and then we also have the Vegas Thrill at the San Diego Mojo. Oh boy. This one's going to be at 10 p.m. Pacific, or 10 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 p.m. Pacific. All right. This one's going to be an interesting one. So, the first meeting between these two teams, the Vegas Thrill spanked the San Diego Mojo. This time around, the Mojo are the host team, and they have some momentum after finally winning their first ever match. Now we can all get the thought of our mind of the San Diego Mojo is going to go winless out of our brains. Tammy Thomas Ailara is playing such great volleyball for the San Diego Mojo. But here's the thing. The Vegas Thrill are going to be coming out hungry and ready for a win, especially after losing twice to the same team in the span of 3 days, and also losing to the Valkyries. So I will just say the Thrill are in desperate need of a win, whereas the Mojo, they're still trying to shake off that ugly start to the season. Again, I wish I didn't have... Well, I don't have anything going on Thursday. Maybe I could go to this one. But again, I'm not swimming in cash, and unless I'm covering this event as a media member, I just, I don't think it's worth me tearing off my arm and leg and lungs and pancreas just to go to one match. I'll go to a San Diego Mojo match one day. Then we have on Friday the Grand Rapids Rise heading down to Edition Financial Arena to take on the Orlando Valkyries. 7 p.m. Eastern start time matchup. All right. Grand Rapids Rise obviously suffered their most ugliest loss in their early program history as they head down to Orlando to take on the Valkyries. Now, the Valkyries, like I said, every match for them is kind of precious just because the Columbus Fury are starting to boon. The Vegas Thrill is kind of an off and on switch. Like, we all know who the top 3 teams are. Grand Rapids Rise, Omaha Supernovas, and the Atlanta Vibe. That just leaves the 4 teams that I just mentioned previously. The Mojo, the Thrill, the Valkyries, and the Fury. Only one of those teams will be able to advance to the playoffs. This isn't like the Big West tournament where everyone gets to partake, and the EIVA tournament. There's going to be some teams left out. If the Valkyries want to make a statement, they're going to have to take down someone big time. I know it's not going to be the Supernovas because the past 2 times they faced them, it's not gone their way. Beating the Grand Rapids Rise after they just lost to the San Diego Mojo would be great and essential. And the Valkyries aren't a bad team. They're coached by Amy Pauley, who I think is a fantastic coach. She was the associate coach at USC. But I will just say, she's facing Kathy George, the former Michigan State women's volleyball coach, who's one of the all-time winningest coaches, if not the winningest coach at Michigan State. So this one's going to be a fun one. Nice little East Coast matchup right there. And then we have a Saturday matchup. The Atlanta Vibe head down to good old San Diego to take on the San Diego Mojo. All right, well, here's the thing with this matchup. The San Diego Mojo are finally going to experience playing 2 matches in a row. The thing about the Atlanta Vibe is that they will have played 2 matches in a row as well. On paper, this just looks like the Vibe is going to win this one, but everyone said that about the Grand Rapids Rise taking on the Mojo, and we're all eating crow. Who knows? Maybe the Mojo will be able to pull off another big win. But I'm guessing the Atlanta Vibe will win this one. I just think the Atlanta Vibe are stacked across the board. I just think they have too much talent on their hand. With players like Allie Stumler, or I'm sorry, I don't know her maiden name, so I'm just so used to calling her Allie Stumler ever since she was at Michigan. Or not Michigan, why did I say Michigan? Kentucky. Ever since she was at Kentucky. But I will just say, I just think the Atlanta Vibe is just too stacked across the board. But at least the Mojo have a sense of direction, and they can only go up from here. Then on Sunday, we have the Columbus Fury heading down to the land of Disneyland, or Disney World, Edition Financial Arena, to take on the Orlando Valkyries. Alright, this is going to be a fun matchup. Like I just mentioned, between the Fury, the Mojo, the Valkyries, and the Thrill, only one of those teams will be going to the playoffs. Unless the Vibe, the Rise, and the Supernovas basically collapse, I just think that those 3 teams are stamped in terms of their top 3 status. The Fury and the Valkyries could be a fun matchup right here. And with how the Fury are playing, I would not be surprised if the Fury managed to snatch a win on the road. They've won 3 in a row, and they could make it 4. The only thing I will just say about the Columbus Fury is that they can't get too high on these wins, and they certainly can't get too low on the losses. And once they get more healthy, then the Columbus Fury are going to be a major threat to everybody. And then, jumping over to next Monday, we have another doubleheader. We have the Atlanta Vibe heading down to Sin City to take on the Vegas Thrill Dollar Loan Center. I mean, I want to say the Thrill can win this one, but again, Atlanta is just so stacked across the board. it's kind of tough for me to say the Atlanta Vibe is going to beat the Vegas Thrill with a straight face. Also on Monday, the Grand Rapids Rise head back down to San Diego to take on the San Diego Mojo at Viejas Arena. You know what I hate about these two matchups? They start at 7 p.m. I'm going to be talking about everything in terms of volleyball at 6 p.m. Yes, FYI, Set Point is returning to its normal time at 6 p.m. and its normal day on Monday. This whole Monday thing of me having to PA announce, that was just a thing right there. That thing is gone, however. So, this kind of sucks if you ask me. I don't think, no offense to the San Diego Mojo, I don't think lightning is going to strike twice, and I kind of expect Grand Rapids Rise to come out with more vengeance. However, again, Mojo now have a sense of direction. They could, hence the word could, possibly go on a little bit of a win streak and maybe, hence the word maybe, start stringing the wins together. They were chosen to finish 5th, but they're kind of not living up to that expectation for now. But now that they've won a match, they now have a sense of direction. And Grand Rapids Rise is probably going to keep that loss to the Mojo in the back of their minds. And maybe, again, maybe it was just an off night for Claire Chaussee. And maybe she'll have a monster night against the Mojo. So we'll see what happens. Closing off Pro Volleyball Federation discussion, we got to go to the standings. So, oh my god, the standings are looking very, I wouldn't say unorthodox, but they're looking all over the place, as the Atlanta Vibe are basically a sliver of a game ahead of the Omaha Supernovas. In terms of win percentage, they kind of have that advantage, but I feel Omaha is kind of the hotter team. I think Omaha is going to find a way to keep rising to the occasion. And then Columbus Fury and Grand Rapids Rise are tied at 3-2 for third place. However, the Fury have won 3 in a row, so don't be surprised if the Fury basically start stringing them together. The Valkyries are 3-4. Obviously, they have lost. They lost to the Supernovas, but they can still turn it around. The Vegas Thrill have lost 3 in a row. They're 2-5. And then the San Diego Mojo, they're bringing up the rear, but they have a sense of direction where they'll go. I guess I should also mention the Columbus Fury are also undefeated at home, as there's only 2 teams that are undefeated on their home turf, which is the Fury and the Mojo. But the Mojo have only played 1 match. The Fury have played at least 2, which is the case. So that's going to basically do it for Pro Volleyball Federation. It's going to be a fun week this week, and the Pro Volleyball Federation is starting to pick up, as there's a lot of matches. If it weren't for NCAA men's volleyball and all sorts of volleyball that's happening around my area, I think I'd be watching more of this, or I'd be watching quite a bit more of this. But there's just a lot of matches happening, and I try to do my best to keep up with everything, but I try not to be a one-trick pony. All right, well, that's that for some Pro Volleyball Federation. Let's discuss a little 3C2A men's volleyball. So, last Wednesday, the same day that the Columbus Fury beat the Omaha Supernovas, it was actually the day that the number 1 team in the 3C2A took on the number 2 team in the 3C2A in Orange Coast versus San Diego Mesa. And while this was billed as a great battle, the Pirates of Orange Coast really took care of business at home. They won the first set 25-20. It was actually tied 16-16 after the Pirates led for a good portion of the first half of the set. But then the Pirates went on a 5-0 run. They never looked back. They won the first set 25-20. The second set, San Diego Mesa actually jumped out to a 5-1 lead. They eventually led 11-6. But then OCC, or Orange Coast, went on a 12-0 run. And then they eventually, 12-0 run after they were trailing 11-6. You do the math. That is 18, that's basically a 12-point swing, and they're up 12, or 18 to 11. San Diego Mesa did win the next 2 points after that 12-0 run, but then a 7-0 run from Orange Coast managed to take the second set for the Pirates as they wound up winning it 25-13. It's so crazy that volleyball can just be a sport of momentum. Landon Seymour was the one that started the whole 12-0 run with his serving. Well, the last 11 points were courtesy of him. The other point was from San Diego Mesa, probably with an error, having to serve. But you get what I mean. And then Miles Henderson closed out that 7-0 run with his strong serving. That's the thing about the Pirates. They're just such a strong team when it comes to serving. And then Orange Coast jumped out to a fast lead in the third set. San Diego Mesa tried to get within striking distance, but the Pirates were not having any part of it as they took the third set 25-19. Now, my numbers are completely different. Here's the official box score, as Orange Coast didn't even post their box score. How fun. But I will just say, my numbers aren't really the most accurate, no matter what happens, as Cole Hauser had 15 kills, he hit .583. Miles Henderson had 8 kills. Cam Vakilian had 6 kills, and he hit .508. And then for San Diego Mesa, they were led by Trevor Clark, who had 8 kills. TJ Latulu. Oh my God, this guy's last name is pretty tough to pronounce. TJ Latuliga Sanoa. TJ Latuliga Sanoa. He had 5 kills, which was the second kill leader behind Trevor Clark. So my takeaway for Orange Coast is this. They're probably the clear consensus number one. Now, and the big thing is for Orange Coast is that they got through the toughest part of their schedule. They got through the tough part of their non-conference schedule, and they just look really good. Now, I'm not crowning them right away, because they actually have a few more challenges on the horizon. That would be in the Orange Empire Conference play when Golden West and Irvine Valley could try to challenge them, because Golden West is actually number 3 in the nation. They probably have their best team in quite a while, and then Irvine Valley is always good, and they're the last team in that conference to beat Orange Coast. But the Rustlers are long overdue for a win over OCC, as their last win over the Pirates, it came in 2016 when the Rustlers made it all the way to the semifinals, only to succumb to the eventual champion Long Beach City. And they are coached by former set point guest Nick Amato, so that's something to note as well. But San Diego Mesa did get back in the win column, beating Fullerton the day after they lost to Orange Coast. And then Orange Coast managed to play, they played pretty much their reserves, and they managed to win in 3 sets against Palomar on their home floor. The same night they honored their women's basketball team. Golden West last Friday, they managed to beat Grossmont in 4 sets, which Grossmont is kind of the under-the-radar team, if I had to basically say. But it's basically, I won't say that they're going to be a possible playoff team, because, like I said, there's only a handful of automatic qualifiers, and it's only an 8-team bracket. There's 6 automatic qualifiers, 4 from the Western State Conference, 1 from the Orange Empire Conference, and then 1 from the Pacific Coast Conference. The other 2, there are only 2 at-larges, and I imagine Irvine Valley and Golden West are going to take the at-larges in the off chance Orange Coast wins the Orange Empire Conference. So the margin of error for every team not named Golden West and Irvine Valley is very, 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 very slim. So this week we have Santa Barbara heading down to Long Beach City on Wednesday. That's pretty much kind of one of the big matchups of the week this week. Then we have Santa Monica heading down to Moore Park to take on Moore Park. That's another big matchup. And then a big non-conference matchup. Those 2 are Western State Conference matches. This is a good non-conference matchup right here. Golden West at San Diego Mesa. That's going to be a big test for the Rustlers. And then Friday, Santa Monica heads down to Santa Barbara City to play the Vaqueros. Almost got the UC Santa Barbara Gauchos mixed up with the Santa Barbara City Vaqueros. And Moore Park heads down to Long Beach to take on Long Beach City, and that's kind of the only notable matches we have there. The Orange Empire Conference hasn't started conference play yet. The Western State Conference has started conference play right now just because they have a lot more teams in that conference, which means more conference matches. So there you have it right there. All right, that's that for some 3C2A men's volleyball. So yesterday, as we all know, I did not do set point. I was on the PA for the Tesoro Tournament semifinals, 3rd place match, and championship match. So in that Tesoro Tournament, Corona Del Mar won the whole Tesoro Tournament as they managed to beat San Clemente in the final 20-25, 26-24, and 15-12. Sterling Foley, if you haven't heard of him, he's just flat out amazing. He was basically carrying Corona Del Mar, and I'm not trying to say that he was the only one that was doing everything. Everett Wilton also stepped up. Ryan Gant stepped up at the setter position. He had a couple of nice kills. Brogan Glenn was doing his thing in terms of serving and passing. I'm just going to say this right there. Corona Del Mar looks pretty good. Yes, they had to cut it close with San Clemente in the final. They actually were down 12-9, and Sterling Foley was kind of hurting. He was just getting cramps. But Corona Del Mar ended the match on a 6-0 run. They managed to beat San Clemente, and San Clemente is so good. They don't get a whole lot of love just because they're in a division lower than Corona Del Mar and every other team. Like it feels so weird seeing a storied program like San Clemente in Division 3 in the CIF Southern section. I just think that that's a little disrespectful just because San Clemente missed the playoffs last year and they had such a meh season last year. But this year, the Tritons are looking really good. And so is Corona Del Mar. In the third place match, we had Newport Harbor defeating Edison in 3 sets, 27-29, 25-20, and 15-10. The Sailors, who are last year's, or the back-to-back CIF Southern Section champions, they actually lost to San Clemente in the semifinals, which they actually were leading for the most part in that set, and then San Clemente caught up to them at 22-22, and then they scored the last 3 points to win that first set 25-22 over Newport Harbor. And then Newport Harbor just did not look the same after that first set. I just thought the Sailors were just a step behind, and they were making errors, or they were getting blocked. I get it, San Clemente is such a talented team, but Newport Harbor's got to win some of these matches. I know they got hit hard in terms of graduation, but they have talented players. They have the likes of Riggs Guy. They have Jack Vonderay, both of which are Division I bound. Walker Vasic is their libero. He's really good as well. But all in all, it just looked like Newport Harbor did not look like the championship team that they were last year. But then again, they did lose quite a bit to graduation. San Clemente returns most of their players from last year. And they even have some studs on their team, which I think is pretty darn impressive if you ask me. So for Newport Harbor, this is kind of their turning point and wake-up call. Because they play Tesoro tonight as of this recording, and they also play Los Alamitos later on in the week. And then next week they've got the Best of the West tournament. Now that tournament is going to answer a whole lot of questions from everybody. And then Edison, like I mentioned, they lost in the semifinals to Corona Del Mar, and they lost their third place matchup to Newport Harbor, both in 3 sets. But I will say this for Edison, they probably have their best team in 10 years. It's been a while since Edison has had a monster good team, and if they keep playing the way that they're playing, even though they did suffer a few losses in the tournament, they even lost to Tesoro in pool play, but they made up for it by just dominating Beckman in the quarterfinals. I think Edison can definitely be a threat, especially in Division I. They did lose last week to Loyola as well, but Loyola is as good as advertised. The Loyola Cubs, they swept Mater Dei on Saturday, the same day the Tesoro Tournament was being played. That was a separate match, and Loyola Cubs, led by Sean Kelly, they're going to look really good. Yes, they're not going to be as amazing, but they're always stacked across the board. So that's that for a little bit of high school boys volleyball talk. Next week, we'll get a little bit more in depth regarding the Best of the West tournament because pool play will most likely have been released. All right, now let's circle the wagons back to NCAA division or NCAA men's volleyball as it's week 9, and probably expect the matches to watch for to be released tomorrow. The matches to watch for this week via video, but the action gets started Wednesday as number 10 Pepperdine heads down to Northridge to take on number 16 CSUN. All right, CSUN, they have one good win. That's USC. Okay, maybe not just one good win. They have a few good wins here and there, but I think beating Pepperdine would be a big win, albeit they did beat USC on the road. But I think beating Pepperdine would be such a huge deal for Theo Edwards. I think that would be a kind of a statement win for the Matadors. However, Pepperdine, I think they're playing decently. I wouldn't say they're playing bad. That one loss to Stanford kind of was the straw that broke their backs, but that's because Stanford is such a freaking powerhouse. And I just realized we only have 10 minutes left, so yeah, expect Pepperdine to kind of win this one, but don't count out CSUN. Like I mentioned in their preview, they didn't lose too much to graduation, so we'll see what happens going forward. Then we have Thursday, number 14 Lewis heads down to Columbus to take on number 7 Ohio State. Big-time MIVA match right here. Ohio State and Ball State are tied atop the MIVA standings right here. However, I will just say this for the Buckeyes. They're not all that invincible. Meanwhile, for Lewis, there's just so much parity that they definitely have a chance to beat Ohio State. If they can slow down Jacob Pastor and some of the other players like Ben Putnam and Cole Young, I think they maybe can pull off the win in Pro Volleyball Center, but it's going to be such a challenge. But that being said, I think Lewis, with all the parity happening in the MIVA, they definitely have a chance to beat Ohio State. And then we have Thursday. This is going to be a fun matchup right here. Number 4 UCLA heads down to Galen Center to take on number 11 USC. Here's the difference between both these teams. They didn't have the most perfect week, but they're still in contention to either still win the MPSF or make strides as an at-large or improve their possible seeding. For USC, obviously last week was an ugly week, losing twice to Grand Canyon. But they are fairly good playing at Galen Center. They have beaten some quality teams. Their only one loss, I think, was to CSUN, and their true good win was against UC Irvine. But that being said, I think this is another test for them to try to win at Galen Center. And then for UCLA, here's the thing for them: if they want to stay within range of playing, of winning the MPSF and basically being the 1 seed and having the bye, they have to learn to not take anyone for granted, and they have to win on the road. Yes, they were able to beat BYU on the road, but it just doesn't work like that. They just have to win on the road. They have to win most of their matchups on the road, and they have to beat the opponents that they know that they can beat. I thought for sure I knew UCLA was going to get a challenge against BYU, and again, Smith Fieldhouse is a very tough place to win at, but I did not expect them to have really good numbers and then just not collapse, but just crumble at the hands of BYU. It just made no sense. And UCLA and USC are also playing on Saturday at Pauley Pavilion, so that's going to be a fun matchup right there. I really look forward to seeing what USC can do against UCLA. Then Friday we have a pretty full slate. We have number 17 George Mason at number 15 Princeton. All right, this is a big-time matchup in the EIVA. Second place could matter between these two teams. Princeton has been on such a little bit of a struggle bus, while George Mason obviously split last week against Charleston. I think Princeton can definitely get back on track, but George Mason, they've been playing some good volleyball. I mean, it hasn't been the most perfect volleyball, but it's still solid volleyball. And whoever basically, if the two teams split, then it's going to depend on what Princeton does going forward, and maybe what George Mason can do going forward, because they still have to face NJIT round 2, and they still have to face Penn State, and so on and so forth. And then on Friday, we have number 8 Stanford heading down to number 1 GCU. Feels weird saying that, but GCU is the official number 1 team in the nation as Sunday the two teams play. All right, GCU has yet another test. If the Lopes want to still remain on top, they got to take care of business against Stanford. And for Stanford, now that they have Will Rotman, they have an identity. If they can definitely get Will Rotman back in that starting lineup, they're for sure a possibility. There's for sure a possibility of beating Grand Canyon. So we'll see what happens with those two. Then we have my match of the week, number 9 Penn State at number 2 Long Beach State. Now, I wish I did not have to PA announce. That way I could also see the full match, just because Long Beach State is also retiring Tom Hoff's jersey. And I talked with Mark Pavlik about that. He says that his team is honored that that they're going to be witnessing a jersey go up into the rafters. And now they're not retiring the jersey, but they're honoring Tom Hoff, so they're not going to retire his jersey officially. But as for the matchup right here, Penn State Long Beach State is always a great matchup. I expect that it's at least going to go 4. If it results in a sweep, then I want to see if any of those players took some secret stuff, or Michael Jordan's secret stuff. And that's Long Beach State's last non-conference match before they kick off Big West Conference play. So it's a very big matchup for Long Beach State. And now Penn State has the role of the underdog. And I don't want to paint the picture of them embracing the underdog role, but I think Penn State should be motivated to try to take on the number 2 team in the nation. They've beaten the number 1 team in the nation. Now let's see how they handle a very good defensive team with players such as Mason Briggs at libero, Simon Torwey at middle. They've also got other tall players like Lazar Buchkov, and so on and so forth. And Clark Oddbold is an offensive powerhouse, as well as Sotiris Chapanis. So we'll see what happens. Then also Friday, we have number 5 UC Irvine heading down to Lion Tree Arena to take on number 18 UC San Diego. The two teams are also facing each other on Sunday. However, that Sunday match is not going to be at Bren Event Center. It's going to be at Crawford Hall. So anyone that's going to UC San Diego at UC Irvine, such as myself, go to Crawford Hall. Do not go to Bren Event Center. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. All right, UC Irvine's conference opener. It's against a team that's already dipped their toe in the Big West Conference. And this is kind of going to be the true test for UC Irvine. Let's see if the Anteaters can take care of business against the very young Tritons. Now, the Tritons obviously picked up their first win of Big West Conference play, but now they start to get into the thick of it in terms of their conference. And then lastly, to close off the matches, we head to Saturday. Number 13 Loyola at number 7 Ohio State. If the Rattlers want to have any shot of having the number 1 seed of the MIVA, they got to beat some teams that are probably ranked ahead of them or that are either on their level or above their level. For Ohio State, this is a huge week for them. They've got Lewis and Loyola on the same week at home. So we'll see what happens with the Buckeyes this week. But that's going to do it for our matches to watch for. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for our matches, or for this week's show. It's time to drop the beat, because Ralph Calise is going to be coming on in 2 minutes with the Inns Report. You feel me? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. I promise you all, next week I will be back on my normal time and day. I won't have to shift it over to Tuesday, I promise. Shout out to Patty Bax, who is also in the chat room. She said, here sort of on a Zoom call, giving my support, and you have a great show. And thank you, Patty, for catching what you can catch. John Felipe was also in the chat room, as well as Larry B and Ralph Calise. Stay tuned, because the Inns Report with Ralph Calise is coming on momentarily. I will see you all on Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Peace!